The nation's economy expanded 1.4% last year on the back of chip exports. This was in line with the central bank's forecast, but still the lowest recorded since the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak. With GTX express train lines that connect the capital Seoul and its surrounding areas set to open soon, the government has vowed to extend the lines for the convenience of commuters and make high-speed trains more accessible in other regions too. This comes as President Yoon held another policy debate session today with citizens. North Korea says its previous day's missile test was of a new type of cruise missile, which it called the Kruhwasar 3-31. The South Korean military sees this as an upgraded version of existing cruise missiles. It's January 25th, 2024. This is Newscenter. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. We start with the latest growth figures. The local economy expanded 1.4% in 2023 on the back of a recovery in chip exports in the final quarter. But this was the lowest recorded after the COVID pandemic outbreak. Our Lee Soo-jin has the details and an outlook.
South Korea's economy grew at its forecasted pace in 2023. Data from the Bank of Korea released on Thursday shows that the country's gross domestic product, a key indicator of economic growth, grew 1.4% last year, in line with the central bank's forecast. But the growth is nearly half that of the 2.6% on-year growth recorded in 2022 and the lowest seen in 3 years. The central bank mostly attributed the sluggish growth to weak private consumption as well as small increases in government spending, exports and imports compared to previous years. Private consumption rose by only 1.8% on year, government spending by 1.3%, exports by 2.8% and imports by 3%. In the fourth quarter last year, South Korea's economy grew by 0.6% on quarter, posting quarterly growth for the fourth consecutive quarter. Positive growth in quarter four was mostly led by an increase in exports thanks to a recovery in the chip sector. And the central bank expects the semiconductor-led recovery in the export sector seen towards the end of last year to continue this year as well.
We can see, just by looking at the data released by the Korea Customs Service for the first 20 days of January, that exports of semiconductors rose by a large margin, signaling that exports this year will also see a recovery led by semiconductors.
But will this be enough for South Korea to achieve its goal of a 2.1% economic growth this year? One expert is optimistic about the country's growth.
I'm personally positive in gaining over 2% growth for this year. As we talked about, the domestic expenditures of consumption and investment are expected to be worse than last year. So the remaining momentum drives Korean economy would be a stronger export. The chip market is highly expected to be recovered from the first half of this year.
The Bank of Korea official added that for South Korea to post stronger economic growth this year, both the government and the economic sector need to focus on mitigating key domestic and international issues that impact GDP, such as persistently low birth rates and remaining competitive on the global stage amid the rise of India and China. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
Overheated housing market, particularly in the capital, is forcing some people working in Seoul opt to live on the outskirts of the capital. To help those commuters, President Yoon today vowed to extend high-speed train lines that are set to open soon, among other pledges, as he had another debate session with citizens. Our Kim Do-yeon explains further.
From 70 minutes to just 20. That's how much time the Great Train Express, or GTX, will cut for those commuting from Dongtan in Gyeonggi-do Province to Suseok in Gangnam of Seoul, starting this March as the first GTX line, Line A, opens. That's according to President Yoon Suk-yeol on Thursday, as improving commuting times and transportation was the theme of the 6th New Year's policy discussion.
저는 그래서 선거 때부터 출퇴근 30분 시대를 약속드렸습니다. 출퇴근의 질이 바로 우리 삶의 질이기 때문입니다. 교통 격차 해소를 통해서 국민의 이 삶의 질을 확실하게 개선해 드리겠습니다. 당장 올해부터 본격적인 GTX 시대를 열겠습니다.
The GTX project officially started back in 2011. Many who work in Seoul opt for cheaper housing in Gyeonggi-do province with a longer commute. The GTX was aimed to relieve this. Reducing commuting time also means that it could ease Seoul's intense real estate market as more people consider living further out from the capital. GTX lines confirmed so far are A, B, and C. A goes from Gyeonggi-do, north of Seoul, cutting through before ending at the southern part of the province at Pyeongtaek Station. B cuts across horizontally and is set to start operating in 2030, while C also runs vertically, set to operate 2028. All have a maximum speed of 180 kilometers per hour, 3 times faster than the current Seoul metro system. More are being planned as well. Lines D, E, and F will be pushed by the current administration. Line E is set to connect to the nation's main international airport. On top of this, the government is looking to create similar express train systems in the nation's 4 biggest cities, including Busan. Also, according to the government, more projects are in the pipeline. They include underground highway systems and improving the public transit of other local districts. Altogether, it will be worth more than $100 billion, including private funding. Meanwhile, Thursday's discussion was held in the city of Uijeongbu of Gyeonggi-do province, where the groundbreaking ceremony for Line C followed. President Yoon was there to amplify his message.
처음부터 끝까지 꼼꼼하게 직접 챙기겠습니다. 늦지 않고 제때 제대로 개통되게 하겠습니다. 국민과의 약속은 반드시 지킬 것입니다.
President Yoon also spoke to those involved in the construction of the projects, asking them for a speedy but safe completion. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Beginning this Saturday, the law punishing the owners of large-sized businesses for accidents at their workplace will begin to affect small business owners. This is because the rival parties at the National Assembly did not reach an agreement until the last minute on an extension of the grace period given to small businesses. Our National Assembly correspondent Lee Si-hoo reports.
Beginning this Saturday, some 830,000 small business owners or CEOs will face penalties if they don't do their best to prevent serious industrial accidents at their workplaces. This as talks after talks between lawmakers spanning days at the National Assembly did not lead to a grace period extension of the Serious Accidents Punishment Act. This would penalize businesses with 5 to 49 workers. The act was first enacted in 2021 to protect workers and customers from health risks and concerns due to preventable malpractices. It was implemented a year after in 2022, but only applied to businesses with 50 or more employees, with smaller businesses given a 2-year grace period. It punishes death, repetitive injuries, or sickness among workers as well as customers who have used their products or services. The owners may receive either a prison sentence of a year or more or a fine of up to 1 billion Korean won or around $749,000. Owners are required to conduct yearly self-inspections to check for safety hazards. Businesses in certain industries must hire an additional safety manager. While Thursday's plenary session was the last chance for an extension according to legal deadline, it wasn't discussed nor voted upon due to clashes in opinions between parties. The PPP has been calling for an additional 2-year grace period for small businesses, saying that it requires more time to prepare the safety measures that have been called for.
Many small and medium-sized business owners may face closures in the worst-case scenario unless the act is suspended. Workers will also lose their jobs.
The DP is calling for further measures by the government before it can agree with the extension. It's calling for the establishment of an industrial safety prevention agency as well as a related budget increase.
If the act is suspended for another 2 years without any action taken, our industrial safety will be in the same state again, even 2 years later.
Amid the debates, President Yoon called for the Assembly's approval on an extension earlier on Thursday, stating the need to consider the situations of small business owners, his second comment of assertion since a cabinet meeting last week. 이시후, Arirang News.
President Yoon has appointed Park Sang-wook, a professor of science policy at Seoul National University, as the first senior secretary for science and technology at the presidential office. Following his appointment on Thursday, Park vowed to strengthen the country's strategic tech sectors, including AI and quantum biology, through proactive coordination with scientists and technologists in the fields. In November last year, the presidential office announced a plan to create the Office for Science and Technology, aiming to more effectively nurture these sectors at the governmental level. This new office will concentrate on developing 4 key areas: R&D policy, digital technology, biomedical sciences, and future strategic technologies. In other news, North Korea today confirmed its missile testing on Wednesday, claiming that the launch involved a new strategic type of cruise missile. Kim Jong-sil has details.
North Korea says the cruise missile that it fired on Wednesday morning was its new strategic cruise missile called the Bulhwasal 3-31. Bulhwasal means fire arrow in Korean. The North claimed the test was part of an ongoing renewal of its weapon systems and is a regular and obligatory activity of its missile and defense science agencies. Previously, its very similar cruise missiles were just called Hwasal 1 and 2, meaning arrow.
By giving it a complicated name, North Korea appears to be highly intent on threat propaganda, as if it's developing a new weapons system.
North Korea's underwater drone carrying a strategic nuclear weapon is called the Hail-2 Unmanned Underwater Nuclear Attack Boat. The South Korean military provided analysis during a briefing on Thursday morning.
The cruise missile launched by North Korea yesterday had somewhat shorter flight distance compared to those launched in the past. We believe this time the test was intended to improve the performance of existing cruise missiles.
Experts say cruise missiles can hit targets precisely from long range, but because they are slow, they can be shut down if detected. It's for this reason that the UN Security Council hasn't banned cruise missiles as opposed to ballistic missiles for North Korea. But experts said Pyongyang's cruise missiles can pose just as much of a threat if they can carry nuclear warheads as claimed by the North. Tensions are rising on the Korean peninsula, with the regime carrying out its second missile provocation in 10 days after it launched a solid-fueled IRBM on January 14th. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
The conflict in the Middle East is creating a ripple effect across the global economy as it's disrupting one of the world's most significant shipping routes. Rising shipping prices and supply chain risks are the topics for our weekly segment today. Our trade correspondent Moon Hae-ryun joins me in the studio. Hi, Hae-ryun.
Good evening, Jungmin.
Evening. So, Hae-ryun, can you tell us why there's been an issue with shipping around the world?
Absolutely. So over the past couple of weeks, hundreds of ships have been taking a detour in order to avoid attacks from Houthi forces in the Red Sea. The militant group has attacked several vessels with drones and rockets in what it says is an attempted block of Israel's shipping links to disrupt its military campaign against Gaza. As you can see on the map here, the shipping route through the Suez Canal is the shortest pathway connecting Asia with Europe and the east coast of the United States. It's why this route handles roughly 12% of the world's annual global trade, but now ships are taking an alternative path around Africa.
If you look at the travel time, which is in some respect now double, triple the time to the Eastern Med, normally it's 10 days through the canal. Now it is 18 days longer.
Despite the longer journey, major ocean carriers such as Germany's Hapag-Lloyd and Denmark's A.P. Moller-Maersk have diverted their ships. And as a result, the International Monetary Fund found that maritime traffic passing through the Suez Canal so far in 2024 fell by more than a third compared to the same period last year.
What does this all mean for the economy and which countries are affected?
So naturally, the crisis has led to a spike in shipping rates, as well as rising insurance premiums for ships that are still choosing to travel through the Red Sea. Not only does this directly translate into higher costs of goods, but it's also causing shortages at stores as parts and products are taking longer to arrive. According to UK-based jewelry shipping consultants, the average worldwide cost of shipping a 40-foot container has more than doubled in the past month. Companies such as Tesla and Volvo have suspended operations at some of their European plants due to shortages of parts for Asia, while retailers such as Swedish furniture giant IKEA have warned of possible delays in stock. With these rising costs, financial services company JP Chase predicted that worldwide consumer prices could rise 0.7% in the first half of the year and contribute to worsening in inflation. So in short, it's affecting countries all around the world and not just China, which relies heavily on shipping for its exports.
In the end, container shipping companies' European routes and the US routes all go through Korea, China, Singapore, and Europe, so the impact is virtually the same.
And Hyun, is there any necessary steps taken to mitigate these problems?
Well, Jung-min, the problem is still ongoing, so firms and governments are keeping a close watch to respond to any changes that arise. It's difficult to tell when normal operations can resume, so there's been a variety of responses to tackle different aspects of the conflict. Here's what an expert said about the steps that firms need to take going forward.
Changes will vary greatly depending on how much faster shipping companies deploy their ships and respond by changing network strategies again for this increased journey time.
Governments are responding in various ways. The US has formed a naval coalition with the likes of Britain and France to counter threats directly in the Red Sea. South Korea, on the other hand, is focusing on rising shipping rates. During an emergency meeting to discuss exports this afternoon, the country's trade ministry unveiled its plans to implement support for firms in stages depending on how shipping rates rise. It will be offering vouchers for firms to cover costs for services such as consulting and advertising, and raise support for SMEs by increasing designated freight space and funding 3.6 billion Korean won, or just under $2.7 million for shared warehouses in Europe and the US.
All right, thanks for your report today, Hyun.
Thank you for having me.
South Korea's two leading automakers, Hyundai Motor and Kia, both saw all-time high earnings in 2023. According to data released by Hyundai on Thursday, the company recorded around $11 billion in operating profit last year, surpassing its previous high in 2022 by 54%. The auto giant attributed the rise to robust sales growth in North American and European countries, on top of a surge in global sales of eco-friendly and high-end vehicles. Its smaller sibling Kia announced the same day that it logged an operating profit of more than $8 billion, also hitting a fresh high on the back of eco-friendly cars. On the cultural front, the Seoul Philharmonic, one of the oldest orchestras in Korea, recently appointed its new music director, Jaap van Zweden. He's holding an inaugural concert with the orchestra from today, featuring pianist Yoon. And ahead of this, our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin listened to what the maestro has in plan for his 5-year term.
Less than a month into his role as the music director of the Seoul Philharmonic Orchestra, Jaap van Zweden says he's already feeling at home. His connection with Korea goes back decades.
My big violin teacher was a Korean man, Hyo Kang, who is still a very respected teacher at the Juilliard School. And I have very close contact still with him. But on stage, I've been working for many years with Korean artists.
Before coming to Korea, the Dutch conductor led the New York and Hong Kong Philharmonic orchestras. Under his baton, the Hong Kong Philharmonic became the first Asian orchestra to be named Gramophone's Orchestra of the Year. Celebrating his new chapter in Korea, Seoul Philharmonic is holding a concert featuring pianist Im Yoon-chan, the winner of the 2022 Van Cliburn International Piano Competition. It's been only a few days since they started rehearsing together, but they've already found a rhythm.
I can smell, I can feel, I can see also that the history of this man is hardworking, serious musician. And that is always very touching and moving.
The two-day concert will provide a glimpse into the maestro's vision for the Seoul Philharmonic. Performing Mahler's Symphony No. 1 aligns with the goal of performing and recording all of Mahler's symphonies within his 5-year term.
And I think it will make the orchestra, it will put the orchestra in an extra layer of color, emotions, strength in the future.
For him, a top-tier orchestra consistently delivers excellence, and his aim is clear: to shape the Seoul Philharmonic into just that.
I think that maybe the road to heaven is maybe more beautiful than heaven itself. So being on the road with the orchestra is the big joy for me. And I hope also for the players in the orchestra.
And he hopes the audience feels the same.
We truly enjoy every concert that we play on stage. And so the enjoyment and the intensity, that is what we want to give the public.
Starting with this week's concert, Van Zweden will be opening up a new era with the Seoul Philharmonic Orchestra. 송유진, Arirang News.
Over in Gangwon, where the Winter Youth Olympics are taking place, 1 gold and 2 silver medals were added today for Team Korea. In the men's snowboard slopestyle final, South Korean Lee Chae-woon won the gold with 96 points, marking the 3rd gold for Team Korea. Hosok and Im Lee-won claimed the silver medal in the mixed relay speed skating. They competed against athletes from China, Japan, and the Netherlands at Gangneung Oval. China won the gold by a difference of 0.04 seconds. On the same day, the Korean women's national youth ice hockey team secured another silver in the women's 3-on-3 tournament. The team lost against Hungary in the final with a set score of 3-0. Nevertheless, this is the first ever Olympic medal in South Korea's ice hockey history. So far, Team Korea has claimed 3 gold, 4 silver, and 4 bronze. Daytime temperatures were higher than yesterday's, but today still felt like a freezer. The cold wave that lasted for nearly a week is now coming to an end. This freezing cold snap will continue until tomorrow morning and then gradually recover from the daytime. However, there is still snow forecast in the mountainous areas of Jeju Island from tonight. Around 1 to 3 centimeters will accumulate by tomorrow morning. It's icy all over the place on the west coast and Jeju Island, where a lot of snow has already fallen. Special attention is necessary. Most regions will start the morning at sub-zero temperatures. Seoul and Daejeon -6 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 3 degrees in Seoul, Daegu and Gyeongju 7 degrees Celsius.
As for Gangwon-do province, where the Youth Olympic Games are being held, morning temperatures will still be freezing as low as -13 degrees in Pyeongchang and Cheongsan. Please take care not to catch a cold. This coming weekend will be mostly sunny with winter weather back to normal levels. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.